Hello, my name is Rob Wilson and I'm a product manager at Immuta. I'm excited today to announce the launch of Intents. Intents grants access based on what the user is doing and not just who the user is, allowing you to create isolated, exclusive access to perform a particular task. When we think about the options of granting access in Immuta today, you have birthright access that's based on who the user is, their identity, groups, and attributes. You also have options via the Request app for users to select data sources and request access to them, and those can go through an approval flow to grant that user access. With the launch of Intents, the user is self-selecting their access based on the task they're intending to perform, and as a governor, you are narrowing the scope of that access to make sure it's only what they need to perform a particular task, and you have the audit visibility of knowing who assumed that intent and what they performed when they were acting under that intent. Now let's take a look at how this will work for a clinical trial example in Immuta. First, we're going to go to the Identities tab and select Intents. That'll show the intents we've created for our end users that they can assume and act to perform a particular task. To create a new intent, you supply a name for that intent, a description, and then the attributes that the user will assume when acting under the intent. Their birthright attributes are suspended, and the intent attributes are what's active when they're acting under that session. You can also specify the groups that can assume the intent. The intent has permissions that you've set up, and you want to make sure only certain groups can assume that intent and act under that intent at a particular time. Back to the main list here, we see there's Clinical Trial Alpha and limited access to Clinical Trial Alpha. So let's take a look at what happens. For Clinical Trial Alpha, a user inherits the attribute Study Trial Alpha, and we'll show you a masking policy that's relevant to that in just a second. For assigned groups, service principals and data scientists can assume this intent when acting in Databricks. And you can see here the group name that maps to the intent we're creating on the Immuta side. So that is created automatically, and you assume that within Databricks. Here's that policy we talked about. So this is a data policy that is masking data within this clinical trial data. We're using hashing to mask the value in patient ID, except for anyone possessing the attribute Study Trial Alpha. And we showed you earlier that Clinical Trial Alpha has that attribute, so we'll see the unmasked value. We're here within Databricks, acting as Clinical Trial Alpha group. And when we run the query, you see that patient ID is a clear, visible column. So this intent creates a group in Databricks, and when acting under that intent, you see the patient ID column. But if we're acting under a different group, so this maps to the intent Clinical Trial Alpha, but limited access Clinical Trial Alpha. When we run that same query without the attribute Study Trial Alpha, that patient ID column is masked using hashing. So we see that here. We'll try another example right now to show a different table. So this is showing the patient locations. And once again, that patient ID column is hashed. But I still want this limited access user to have the ability to contribute and assist others on the clinical trial. I just don't want them to see the patient ID. So let's run this query and see if we're able to join on that masked column. And here, this is important because I'm acting under the intent. At the time I run this query, the masked join is successful, and I'm able to have visibility into those fields, merge them across tables, and perform my duty while acting under the intent. Thank you for joining us today for this demo. We're happy to answer any questions you have about Intents functionality, and we look forward to working with you to roll out this feature to your end users. Thank you.